Link has been saving Hyrule for decades now, across every game, every timeline, every apocalypse. But this isn't just a design choice, it's a cosmic law written in blood and prophecy, thousands of years before most Links were even born. Today we're breaking down every metaphysical reason why Link is always destined to be the hero, starting with the exact moment this entire nightmare became inevitable. The Curse of Demise. At the very beginning of the official Zelda timeline, in Skyward Sword, Link defeats the Demon King, Demise, in a realm beyond time. Standard hero stuff, but in his final moments, Demise does something that weaponizes storytelling itself. He curses those who share the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero to face his reborn hatred in a cycle without end. Not a vague threat, an actual metaphysical law. The curse is phrased in future tense absolutes. Those like you will appear throughout the ages. This is a hostile rewrite of the cosmic script, adding a new rule that even the goddesses cannot erase. Here's the thing, future Links inherit a world whose very ontology has been bent toward replaying this conflict. They have zero knowledge of Demise. Most of them don't even know his name, but they're born into a fight they didn't choose, because a Demon King pronounced it thousands of years before their birth. One heroic victory gets transformed into a chain that loops through generations. You don't get to opt out. You were drafted before you existed, and it works. Game after game confirms the pattern. Ganon returns after periods of peace. A reborn hero must rise again. Skyward Sword retroactively turns every previous Zelda game into a chapter of this curse. The curse guarantees that some form of Ganon, Zelda, and Link will continually reappear across millennia. Peace is only ever provisional, but at least Demise's curse is just words on paper, right? Wait until you hear about the actual spirit those words are targeting. The spirit of the hero. Every single Link across the entire Zelda franchise is fundamentally the same guy, except when he isn't. The spirit of the hero is this recurring metaphysical fingerprint that manifests in completely different people across centuries, and it is way less of a gift than it sounds. The hero of time, the hero of winds, the hero of twilight. Distinct individuals, separated by hundreds of years, totally different lives. Some are even literal descendants of previous heroes, while others, like the kid in Wind Waker, have zero biological connection and just get picked by the gods because they happen to be brave. But they all share the exact same core traits: unshakable courage, a direct connection to the Master Sword, and zero say in the matter. Here's where it gets dark. Being chosen isn't a reward, it's cosmic conscription. Every Link starts as an ordinary kid, living an ordinary life, and the cycle just interrupts them and forces them into an ancient role they never asked for. Whenever the balance tips toward power, courage must awaken in a new host. You get drafted by the universe, and resisting isn't exactly an option. And nobody illustrates this tragedy better than the hero's shade. In Twilight Princess, you meet this spectral golden wolf who transforms into a skeletal warrior, and he is explicitly the spirit of the hero of time from Ocarina of Time. He refers to himself as having failed to be recognized as a hero in life. A legendary savior died feeling his legacy wasn't secure, and his regret was so intense it kept him tethered to reality just to pass his skills to a new incarnation. He calls the new Link my child, turning abstract reincarnation into literal ancestral pressure. The weight of past lives isn't some poetic metaphor here. It's a dead hero standing in front of you, demanding you finish what he couldn't, which is, not ideal. But the spirit of the hero only covers half of this cosmic equation. The other half runs through a very specific bloodline, the blood of the goddess. Goddess Hylia abandons her divine status to reincarnate as a mortal woman in Skyward Sword, creating the origin of the royal family line known as Princess Zelda. And that's not a metaphor, it's an actual cosmic demotion that locks divine expectations into a bloodline for the rest of time. Before you assume this is just backstory flavor, hear me out. Zelda's descendants inherit sacred powers for sealing and restraining evil. The royal family isn't just politically powerful, they're spiritually weaponized. Every princess born into this line is expected to wake up one day with the ability to channel the light of a goddess who gave up immortality to become human. And that expectation doesn't care if you're ready, capable, or even willing. In Breath of the Wild, Zelda struggles for years to awaken her sealing powers, revealing deep inadequacy under the weight of inherited expectations. She spends her entire childhood praying at sacred springs, performing rituals that are supposed to unlock her divinity, and nothing happens. The memory cutscenes show her breaking down in tears, convinced she's a failure, convinced the world will end because she can't do the one thing her blood is supposed to guarantee. But here's where it gets dark. The royal bloodline is both a privilege and a target. Every major evil like Ganon seeks to possess, access, or eliminate Zelda. If you're descended from the goddess, you're a flashing beacon that ensures darkness will always know where to strike. Being born a princess in this family means being born a hostage to cosmic forces you had no say in. Hylia's reincarnation transforms the defense of the Triforce from a divine responsibility into a dynastic human one. What was once a goddess's job is now a mortal woman's job, passed down through generations like a crown. And just like a crown, you can't abdicate it. In Breath of the Wild, Zelda holds Calamity Ganon inside Hyrule Castle for 100 years, alone, maintaining the seal through sheer willpower while the rest of the world recovers. That's not being rescued, that's being a tragic saint whose miracles are demanded rather than freely offered. But if you think carrying the blood of a goddess is heavy, at least you have divine power to show for it. Unlike the fragment of the Triforce that literally marks you for cosmic combat the second you touch it, the Triforce of Courage. In Ocarina of Time, when Ganondorf barges into the sacred realm expecting to claim ultimate power, the Triforce does something nobody saw coming. It shatters. The three pieces fly apart and attach themselves to whoever best embodies each virtue. Power to Ganondorf, wisdom to Zelda, and courage to Link. Which means Link, a kid who just wanted to save his friends, now has a glowing mark on his hand that says, "Congratulations, you're cosmically responsible for everything forever." Before you think this is just a cool tattoo, hear me out. The Triforce of Courage isn't just a symbol, it's a binding contract you never signed. From the moment it appears on Link's hand, he becomes a magnet for destiny, danger, and impossible expectations. He didn't choose it. It chose him as collateral damage in Ganondorf's power grab. But here's where it gets weird. In the Wind Waker, the Triforce of Courage has been shattered into 8 pieces, scattered across the Great Sea. The Hero of Winds, who isn't even a descendant of the Hero of Time, has to literally collect fragments of his own virtue, like puzzle pieces, before he's allowed to be the hero. Think about that. Courage, an internal quality, has been externalized into physical objects that you have to hunt down and reassemble. It's not enough to be brave. You have to prove you're brave by gathering the shards of bravery itself, which is both poetic and deeply disturbing. The real trap is the feedback loop. Is Link courageous because he bears the Triforce, or does he bear the Triforce because he's already courageous? The answer is both, and that's the problem. The Triforce of Courage doesn't just recognize bravery, it demands it, empowers it, and turns it into a cosmic obligation. It takes a personal virtue and transforms it into a divine mandate that you can't refuse, can't ignore, and definitely can't return. At least with the Triforce, you get some recognition of your inner character. With the Master Sword, things get even more selective. The Master Sword's choice. The Master Sword is either the greatest weapon in gaming history or the most judgmental piece of metal ever forged, and I can prove it. In Skyward Sword, the sword is forged from the Goddess Sword through sacred flames and trials that would break most people before they even started. It's inhabited by Fi, a spirit who explicitly recognizes Link as her chosen master and whose entire existence is tied to serving the one with the unbreakable spirit. When the game ends, Fi goes dormant inside the blade, waiting, not for anyone, for the right one. Centuries can pass and the sword just sits there, patient, remembering every single battle it's fought and every hero it's served. Here's where it gets weird. The sword doesn't just let anyone draw it. In Breath of the Wild, you need a minimum number of heart containers, as if the blade is literally measuring your life force and deciding whether you're strong enough to survive what comes next. The Master Sword nearly drains Link's life when he tries to pull it from the pedestal, glowing brighter and brighter as it tests whether his restored strength matches what it remembers. Success doesn't mean you pass some generic worthiness test. It means the sword recognizes you as the same kind of hero it bonded with lifetimes ago. But the truly unhinged part happens in Tears of the Kingdom. The sword doesn't just wait for Link, it travels through time, safeguarded by Zelda, who transforms herself into an immortal dragon to preserve the blade across thousands of years, arranging history itself to ensure that Link will be equipped when the final battle arrives. The Master Sword exhibits quasi-conscious alignment with the spirit of the hero, making its choice feel comparable to a sacred vow renewed across lifetimes. It's not just a weapon, it's a character with memory, loyalty, and an agenda. But if you think a sword that judges your worthiness and conspires with fate is disturbing, wait until you hear about the prophecy that tried to prevent disaster and ended up causing it. The prophecy of the Great Calamity. Here's where following ancient blueprints leads to catastrophe. 10,000 years before Breath of the Wild, Calamity Ganon was defeated by an advanced Hyrule, using divine beasts, guardians, and a chosen hero and princess. This victory was recorded in tapestries and ancient texts, preserved as both history and prophecy. The message was clear. Ganon would inevitably return, and when he did, Hyrule would need to repeat the exact configuration that worked before. Hero, princess, divine beasts, guardians. Follow the script, save the kingdom. But here's the kicker. The prophecy becomes self-fulfilling in the worst possible way. 100 years before the main story, King Rome excavates Sheikah technology, reactivates the divine beasts and guardians, and appoints champions and Link to prepare for Ganon's re-emergence. Everyone assumes that what worked 10,000 years ago will work again. The tapestry showed success, so they copy the pattern exactly. Zelda trains desperately to awaken sealing powers that a predecessor millennia before her possessed. Link becomes the appointed knight based on ancient role requirements, not personal choice. Their entire lives are structured around a 10,000-year-old myth neither of them wrote. Ganon returns early, corrupts the guardians and divine beasts from within, kills all 4 champions, mortally wounds Link, and forces Zelda to seal him in the Shrine of Resurrection for a century while she contains Ganon alone inside Hyrule Castle. The very steps taken to avert catastrophe, reactivating war machines, create the conditions for disaster. The ancient technology everyone revered as their salvation becomes Ganon's weapon. Zelda's inherited pressure is particularly brutal. She's told her whole life that she must awaken powers because a princess 10,000 years ago did. When she fails repeatedly, the kingdom's entire defense strategy hinges on her unlocking something based purely on ancient precedent. Her diaries reveal years of insecurity and desperation, trying to live up to a predecessor she never met. Turns out, treating prophecy as an instruction manual rather than a warning is extraordinarily dangerous. At least Zelda eventually awakens her powers when Link nearly dies, unlike the kingdom's entire military strategy, which just died. The Decree of the 7 Sages. The 7 Sages are supposed to be Hyrule's ultimate failsafe, divinely empowered cosmic bureaucrats authorized to seal away great evils, particularly Ganon whenever things get out of hand. Except their solutions never actually fix anything. They just hit pause and leave the bill for the next generation. In Ocarina of Time, 6 sages plus Zelda managed to seal Ganondorf in the Sacred Realm. Cool. But in A Link to the Past, we see what happens when you lock Ganon in a dimension with ultimate power. He gets the Triforce, transforms the entire Sacred Realm into the Dark World, and starts projecting his twisted desires back into Hyrule like a corrupt broadcast signal. The sages literally handed him the keys to a reality-warping artifact and said, "Stay in there." Makes no sense. But here's where it gets complicated. Twilight Princess shows us the sages' absolute worst day on the job. They have Ganondorf chained up at the Arbiter's grounds. They stab him with a divine execution sword. Problem solved forever, right? Turns out, no. The Triforce of Power blazes on his chest. The blade literally shatters, and Ganondorf kills one of them on the spot, which is, not ideal. In their sheer panic, the surviving sages yank open the Mirror of Twilight and banish him to the Twilight Realm instead. So they took a Hyrulean problem and dumped it directly onto another dimension's doorstep. Cool. That's also a thing that happened. Midna's entire people get subjugated because the sages couldn't finish the job. This is the recurring pattern. The sages always choose to seal rather than destroy. Whether it's the Sacred Realm or the Twilight Realm, their institutionalized divinity has a hard limit. They can imprison, but they apparently cannot annihilate, and every single seal weakens eventually. Their decrees create institutional karma that some future Link is forced to resolve, even though he had absolutely zero say in their short-sighted decisions. The sages basically build time bombs and call them solutions. But if you think dead sages and botched executions are bad, wait until you hear about the hero who couldn't even escape this cycle after he died. The hero's shade and secret skills. In Twilight Princess, Link gets trained by a golden wolf that turns into a literal skeleton warrior when you approach it, which is, not ideal. But here's the thing. This isn't just some random ghost with sword tips. The hero's shade is the restless spirit of the hero of time himself, and he's been waiting centuries just to teach somebody his moves. The shade teaches you 7 advanced combat techniques throughout the game. Ending blow, helm splitter, backslice, all the flashy stuff you need to not die immediately when things get serious. But the reason he's doing this isn't because he's generous. He's doing it because he died feeling completely unrecognized and was never able to pass on what he learned. The hero of time saved Hyrule from Ganondorf, traveled through time, prevented apocalypses, and nobody in the child timeline properly honored any of it, so his spirit just lingered, angry and incomplete, and the shade knows exactly who you are. He calls Link my child, not metaphorically, not as a term of endearment. He says it like he means it. This is an ancestor who cannot rest until his work is acknowledged and continued. He's not offering wisdom from a place of peace. He's offering it from a place of pain. The hero's shade doesn't just want to make you a better fighter, he needs to. His entire existence is stuck in this loop of regret because the world moved on without remembering him properly, and the only way he can break free is if someone carries forward what he learned. Every time you master a new skill, he gets a little closer to finally letting go. What makes this so brutal is that even legendary heroes cannot escape obscurity. The hero of time ends up as a forgotten skeleton teaching sword tricks in a void because his deeds weren't celebrated enough in life. Heroism doesn't guarantee peace. It doesn't guarantee recognition. It just guarantees that you'll be expected to solve the next disaster. Link's acceptance of the secret skills becomes an act of compassion as much as pragmatic training. By learning these techniques, he's letting a broken ancestor finally rest. And when the shade teaches the final move and salutes before disappearing, that's a soul who has been trapped by regret for literal centuries finally being released because somebody listened. But if an incomplete legacy can haunt the world this long, imagine what the gods themselves built into the fabric of reality from the very beginning. The Golden Goddesses design. Here's the thing about the entire universe of Hyrule. It was built by 3 goddesses who made it beautiful, functional, and then immediately walked away, leaving behind a cosmic wishbone that grants unlimited power to whoever can grab it. Din shaped the land, Nayru established natural law, and Farore created all living things. Then they departed for the heavens, dropped the Triforce into the sacred realm like a loaded gun in an unlocked drawer, and said good luck with that. By structuring reality around 3 virtues, power, wisdom, and courage, the goddesses guaranteed every major conflict would revolve around imbalances between them. Someone gets too much power without wisdom or courage, and you get Ganon. Someone has courage and wisdom, but no institutional power, and you get Link fighting uphill against a kingdom-sized threat with a sword and a tunic. The world is built to generate this tension over and over because the foundational architecture demands it, and the Triforce itself is the ultimate destabilizer. It's supposed to grant wishes to whoever touches it with a balanced heart, but mortals almost never have balanced hearts. When Ganondorf reaches for it in Ocarina of Time, the thing immediately fractures, scattering power to him, wisdom to Zelda, and courage to Link. This splitting doesn't solve anything. It redistributes the problem, ensuring 3 people are locked into a metaphysical standoff that will define the rest of their lives and everyone who comes after them. The Triforce isn't just a prize, it's a trap that resets the board every time someone tries to win. The goddesses left this thing reachable and then departed entirely, so the world runs on autopilot, generating the same patterns of crisis and restoration across millennia. There's no divine intervention to course correct. The system they built just keeps running, and because it's designed around conflicting virtues and a relic that splits when touched by imperfect hearts, peace can never be permanent. Every era gets a Ganon, every era gets a Zelda, every era gets a Link, which raises an uncomfortable question. Did the Golden Goddesses intend this endless cycle, or did they underestimate how badly mortals would screw up their design? The series never answers that. They made a world where ultimate power is accessible to anyone brave or foolish enough to reach for it, then left that world to deal with the consequences. The creators are gone, and the created are stuck in a loop of their making. But if you think an absent divine design is bleak, wait until you see what happens when all 3 timelines potentially collapse back into one. The convergence of the timelines. Hyrule Historia split the timeline after Ocarina of Time into 3 branches: Adult, Child, and Downfall. But Breath of the Wild sits somewhere long after all of them, in a distant future, where elements from all 3 timelines coexist. Rito, Zora, Koroks, Shaika Tech. Geography from a dozen different eras mashed together. Which raises the question, what if the timelines eventually merge back into one? The convergence theory suggests that no matter how many paths reality splits into, the underlying metaphysical laws eventually reassert a unified pattern. Demise's curse doesn't care which timeline it's in. The spirit of the hero doesn't need a single consistent bloodline. So, over enough time, these divergent branches feed into the same endpoint. A ruined Hyrule that carries the weight of every kingdom that ever rose and fell, in every timeline, all at once. Which means the Link in Breath of the Wild isn't just carrying the burden of one linear history. He's inheriting the compressed residue of countless possible paths. He wakes up in a world that has been saved and destroyed so many times that even the land itself has forgotten which version led here. The ruins could belong to any era. The legends are composites of multiple cycles. His amnesia becomes metaphorical. He is the hero of a multiverse that has lost track of its own continuity. The evidence is everywhere. Geography that mirrors multiple timelines. Races that shouldn't coexist based on the official splits. Divine beasts that echo Shaika technology from an ancient age, predating all known branches. Ancient tapestries depicting a hero defeating Calamity Ganon 10,000 years ago, which itself was just another iteration of the same cycle. The Master Sword rests in the Korok Forest, waiting for a hero whose courage transcends any single version of events. What makes Convergence so haunting is that it transforms Link's role from cyclical to cumulative. He's not just the latest hero in a long line, he's the crystallization of every heroic story compressed into a single incarnation. The world has forgotten which path led here, but it remembers that it has been saved before, many times, by many Links. And the weight of all those cycles collapses into this one ruined kingdom, and this one knight chosen to protect a princess who carries the blood of a goddess reborn across infinite variations. The convergence doesn't erase the significance of earlier timelines, it compounds them. Every decision, every sacrifice, every sealed evil from every branch feeds into this final synthesis. The flood of the adult timeline, the twilight of the child timeline, the repeated downfalls of the third branch. They all happened, and their consequences accumulate in the distant future, where Link wakes to find a kingdom that has collapsed so many times, it barely remembers peace. His burden is the heaviest yet. He doesn't inherit one history, he inherits all of them. And the cycle he's caught in isn't just a loop, it's a convergence point where every loop intersects. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.